So, how do we dissolve the ego? And how do we dissolve all the negativity that it brings into our lives?
Well, just recognizing it within yourself is half the battle. When it wells up inside you, observe it. Smile at it like you're smiling at the antics of a child, because that's what it is. It's your inner child demanding, crying, and resisting the flow of life. The other half is in preventing it from controlling you in situations that invoke it.
All right, the mind works like this. In all situations, first you cognitively analyze something, then you have an emotional reaction to it. But between the two, there's a space.
Okay, you must wedge into that space and prevent emotional reactions by observing them and seeing them as the ego's need to assert itself. See if you can stay quiet when a person starts educating you on something that you already know a lot about. See if you can let go some of your material possessions, your reputation, and the need to always be right.
See if you can stop judging people or become offended by what other people do.
Yeah, when you become offended, that's the ego saying that your way is the best way and that everybody should act and be just like you. By the way, anything that you hate in another person, you have in yourself. It's your ego trying to justify the quality within you by pointing out its more prevalent existence in another and despising them because of it.
So next time you get mad at somebody, look at that reason why you're getting mad at them and see if you have that in your life. You'll be, it's pretty
Yeah, you'll be really
interesting.
surprised. You'll be like, holy crap, that thing is inside of me and that's why I hate it in them. Then you can see it. Once you can see it, you can work on it.
As you practice letting go of the ego, it will have less of a hold on your psyche, and you'll notice a deep peace and happiness begin to manifest in your life.
Let's rename it the evil.
The evil.
Yeah, once you let go of the evil, okay. Another thing the ego likes to do is complain and dwell on negativity.
It likes to feel bad about what's happening because when it does, it can identify itself as a hard done by people.
Remember, it doesn't matter what it latches itself to as long as it's something. And when we complain, it kind of feels good, doesn't it? You say to yourself, oh my God, this shouldn't be happening. Why me? Like that kind of feels good in a weird way because the ego is being attended to. We're allowing it to exert its existence.
In addition to the good feeling given to you by your ego, the way our brain's neurology works will oftentimes keep us stuck in negativity jail.
Negativity jail, that's not where I want to be. Pathways in the brain, which neurological synapses travel down, are like trails in a forest that when used often will be clear and easy to travel down.
While those rarely used will be overgrown with bushes and thus will be harder to travel across.
So when a certain trail is used often, let's say feeling terrible and complaining about anything and everything, the pathway will be clear and easier to use.
And because the trail is clear, it's also familiar. So though a bad emotion comes from it, it will still feel good in a weird way to repetitively use that pathway.
Okay, as compared, let's say, to a pathway which puts you in your power and doesn't allow situations to drag you down.
It's the same thing with worrying. Once we get into a worry pattern, it's difficult to get ourselves out of that rut.
It's like Mark Twain said, I've lived a long life and had many troubles, most of which never happened.
And to add to that is something Wayne Dyer always says, which is, don't believe everything you think.
Don't believe everything you think. Okay, but this getting stuck in negative thought patterns can be reversed. Every time you think high-powered thoughts, that is, thoughts that will make you more effective in life and more effective with women, those particular pathways get cleared out and become easier to travel down.
We found it usually takes people about 6 weeks to switch over from a predominantly negative to a predominantly positive one.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Okay, so here it is, guys. You know what we're going to say. Right now, you absolutely, without excuses, have to eradicate as much negativity from your thought patterns as you possibly can.
If possible, all of them. But just start where you can. Just changing one thought a day is still progress, and it'll still help.
It'll still help a lot. Just one thought a day. I think you guys can do that. Why must we change our thinking, you may be asking? Because the ego believes that through negativity, through selfishness, through beating other people, through revenge, it can bring about a positive end, but it just doesn't work that way. Negativity always and only equals negativity. That's law. We know asking you guys to change all your thinking is a very tall order.
But if you want to be happy, if you want to succeed with women, who doesn't, you have to start controlling your thoughts.
You really have to start controlling them. Okay, have you guys ever seen this movie called The Secret? Okay, yeah, most of you guys have, but if not, I really suggest that you guys check it out. It's a little bit cheesy, I'm not going to lie, but it makes a really good point. Your thoughts are so powerful that you attract to yourself the very things that you're thinking about, and you attract to yourself the energies that you put out there with your thoughts and with your moods.
So if you're complaining all the time, guess what? You're going to get some bad luck.
Yep. But if you concentrate on being upbeat and positive, you'll attract yourself largely positive circumstances and positive people.
And if you believe you're a great guy, which you are, and you have a lot to offer women, you'll attract yourself exactly what you're seeking. Women, right? Girls, women, hot chicks in your life.
Exactly. So all this stuff about the power of positive thinking isn't just fiction. There's real scientific data that backs it up. Science is starting to change its mind about what it used to believe about quantum physics, and because of all this new scientific data that's coming out, The Secret talks about it. Though I'd love to get into it, we don't really have time for a major rundown during this specific seminar, but if you're interested in reading up on some of the experiments they ran to prove this, check out the book right here. It's called The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. It's a really good book to kind of introduce you to a lot of the experiments that they ran to prove this theory that, look, your thoughts actually attract to you certain things. It proves what The Secret was talking about. But if you want to just kind of get an introduction into this, you guys can check out the movie. If it resonates with you at all, I would read the book. Really interesting stuff. Lots of interesting experiments in there. Will change your thinking.
Now, we're not suggesting that you turn into one of those overly optimistic, airy-fairy psycho people that are basically in denial. I know Clutch took me to this bookstore a couple weeks ago, and it was like a full, it was like just a U-turn right away. We saw these people in there; they're just out of touch with reality.
It's like, you ever see that movie Happy Gilmore, where the guy talks to Happy Gilmore? He's like, all positive things. The merry-go-round goes round and round, all good things. And then Happy Gilmore's like, psycho.
They just like some people take things to extremes, and they just don't balance out reality.
Exactly, and we wouldn't sit up here and ask you to trade in one extreme for the other, because both are different sides of the same delusion.
As we spoke about in the chapter, The Tao of Inner Game, can we really define what's good and what's bad in our lives? No, we cannot, because we don't have the total picture. Remember.
Exactly. Non-judgment of a situation, even a situation that most people would label as bad, keeps you from being boxed in by definitions, especially when in reality, we don't know exactly what will come of the situation we find ourselves in.
We believe that you attract to yourself the exact situation you need for optimal growth.
Okay, you all have had to struggle on some level to even be watching this today. So, if you grow from this workshop, if you grow from the suffering which led you here, can you honestly say that the suffering was a bad thing? No, you can't. I believe the purpose of the ego is to define happiness.
After all, it takes the dark for there to be light.
And if there was no ego, there could be no enlightenment. The suffering caused by the ego is the fuel for awakening and self-growth.
As they say, the peacock eats poison, and that's why his feathers are so bright.
Exactly. So, from this perspective, all things that happen, when considering the bigger picture, happen as a way to spur growth and to wake us up. And that is always a good thing. This is what we consider being positive. When we tell you to be positive, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the airy-fairy kind of stuff.
Now, there's a substantial amount of scientific evidence that has shown time and time again that our thoughts and beliefs shape our reality, dictating every experience we will have or have had in the past.
Exactly. In a way, the true nature of consciousness is this. You think of the picture, then you paint it, then you step inside it. So never underestimate the power of your thoughts. They are very, very powerful. So, with all this in hand, we can safely say that if we want to live a self-actualized life, if we want to stop attracting painful situations into our life, we absolutely, without question, must eradicate all negative thought patterns.
And what does that mean? You know what we're going to say, you guys. It means you must dissolve that ego.
You got to get rid of the ego. Your life really doesn't have to be so hard. Sometimes people who are watching this, their life is really bad. But until we wake up, until we avoid the pitfalls of the ego, we're going to draw to ourselves time and time again those situations that will urge us to step beyond the ego and finally wake up.
You know, it's ironic. because it's the ego that provides you with the fuel to transcend it.
As a side note to this, not only is the ego responsible for blatant negativity, it's also responsible for negativity, which is posing as positivity.
Exactly, like using affirmations to build your ego rather than your self-esteem and becoming conceited because of it.
But even when it seemingly builds itself up positively, the ego is motivated again. It's motivated by fear because it is fear, the fear of not being enough. And fear is always and only negative.
Confidence is knowing you're a great person. Conceit is having to prove it.
Well said. When you start to notice the ego in yourself, you'll also start to notice it in others.
It's pretty obvious. With just a little observation, you guys can really see how certain people are dominated by their ego.
Okay, but when you see that, you really need to resist the urge to judge them because that's your ego claiming superiority over them for recognizing the ego within. As Eckhart Tolle says, your ego slips in through the back door and it claims superiority. Instead, feel compassion for them because in reality, their ego is actually causing them a lot of suffering. By the way, guys, compassion doesn't mean feeling sorry for someone. It means recognizing the same being within them that you have within yourself. You recognize with them that they're suffering in life sometimes, that they have dreams. You're recognizing them as somebody just like you, and you can feel for them. That's compassion.
Self-esteem wants others to be happy. Ego wants others to suffer. There's a difference. So be mindful what your ego is telling you.
Be very mindful. When the ego has less and less of a grip on your thinking, when you cease to allow your thinking to be motivated by the insatiable appetites of the ego, not only will you attract great situations into your life, but you'll also attract high-quality women and plenty of them.
So that's the first step to dissolving ego. Recognize the ego within you and start taking steps to controlling it.
Yes, observe it for what it is and know that when you let it go, the happiness we're all naturally striving for will finally come to you.
All right, you guys, now we're going to talk about facing the shadow.
Face the shadow.